Welcome to the FCICA Educational Webinar Series. Thank you for joining us. We are pleased to have Tim Ellison, Business Development Manager, Finished Surfaces, with Ardex Americas with us today, presenting Helping Contractors Manage Customer Expectations. Tim has been in the industry for over 30 years and has worked for Ardex Americas LP in the Technical Service Department since 2004. He is currently their Business Development Manager for Finished Surfaces. Tim has led the Ardex Academy training program for substrate preparation, moisture control, self-leveling underlayments and patching compounds, tile and stone installation systems, engineered concrete repair systems, and designer floor polish systems. He has presented information on moisture in concrete, substrate preparation, flooring adhesives, and tile and stone to many industry groups. Tim is active in several industry associations and standard organizations, including ASTM, FCICA, StarNet, Install, and ICRI. Welcome, Tim. We're excited to have you. I'm going to turn the controls over to you.
Hello and welcome. My name's Tim Ellison, again with Ardex Americas. Been with them since 2004, been in this flooring industry since I was able to almost crawl. My father is an installer, so this industry is passionate to me. So when asked to put together a presentation, program, something, I decided to put something together that this is part of our seminars that we do daily, little bits and pieces, and decided to put it into one program. For today, to try to make this a little bit normal for me, kissed my wife goodbye, walked into the garage, got in the car, and drove around the block, and then walked in the front door of my house just to make it seem like I'm actually going somewhere to do a presentation. You saw the information for this, the help wanted. I hope this intrigued a few of you. Because is this really sarcasm? We talk and discuss this many different ways and times. I have discussed this discussion with people attending the seminars and trainings and just in general. And we asked the question, can the electrician or plumber install flooring? No, typically not. But does the flooring contractor need to understand electrical and plumbing? Well, to a degree, yes. It's funny how this plays out. How the flooring contractor just has to figure it out, understand what's going on with everything from how the concrete was poured when they're not even there during that time, right? And then having to understand what the concrete may have to do. So, in this training, ask the question. Now, when was the last time you read a flooring manufacturer's written instructions on how to install a floor covering? Now I'm finding more and more contractors are, which is fantastic. But most of them look at it and just kind of, we just figure it out. For hard goods, it's shiny side up. What do I have to read the instructions for? I put the glue down and I put the flooring down. For carpet, it's fuzzy side up. What do I have to worry about? What's underneath it, right? But you might be surprised. And their information is important. Just to take a glance, take a look at it. We do a lot of joint trainings, and even through the FCICA, we do a lot of joint things together, from the underlayment adhesive manufacturers to the flooring manufacturers, everyone just getting on the same page. And we do a lot of joint trainings, and we ask and collaborate that, yes, everyone wants everything installed the correct way. And to do that, it has to be done by the flooring manufacturer's written instructions. All right? You might be surprised what's in their instructions, in their information. But it's helpful and useful. It's your backup. It's your support. Right? A few key points for me in particular and for Ardex is that anything on or below grade concrete must have an intact, working properly vapor barrier directly underneath the concrete slab. Now you think of that. And you think of some remodeling and some areas where you just don't know. You know, and that's really important, right? Because what's the one thing that really affects floor covering itself? And anything on or below grade, it is moisture, right? So to have that there, and that's in their written instructions. You know, the other thing that's in there is that a lot of people really don't want to recognize. They know it, but they don't want to recognize is that all flooring needs to be acclimated. Wait, I have to take the flooring I'm going to install on this job site and take it to the job site and let it sit there for a few days. Yes, it has to be acclimated to the area you're going to be putting it in. Right? And so the second key point for me here is that moisture levels must be an acceptable level. You know, because that's one thing that people don't, I mean, you can't see it, right? You can't see the moisture leaving the concrete, right? But we have to test it to know if it's there. Right? So, and then it needs to be addressed. And that's one thing that, you know, well, will it affect my flooring? Possibly, but the flooring manufacturer is telling you that it has to be intact and working properly and directly underneath the concrete slab, and moisture levels need to be an acceptable level. So, a couple of things to have in mind there. So then the next question I asked during our training classes is this: what's the hardest thing for a contractor to say or do? And I get all kinds of responses for this. You know, get the contract, get the job, find good help, have the helper show up, right? Get paid. I'm sure all of you might have your own opinions and thoughts on this. What is the hardest thing to do on a job site or in general? What is the hardest thing to do? The answer is saying no. No, that's the one thing about our industry is we always try to just figure it out, because we always think that it's always upon us to get the job completed, right? But the hardest thing to say is no. Right? All of you contractors understand on how to have a successful installation. You know the right things to do. Right? Going back to moisture in concrete, you test it for moisture, you have to put something on top of it because the moisture levels are too high. Then I get, well, customer doesn't want to pay for that. Now I get this from our own people. Well, they don't want to pay for that. And my response to that, and it's a little easier for me being on the manufacturer side, my response to that is, I don't care. It has to be done this way. For it to be successful, it has to be done this way. Now, some of the things I'm going to discuss and say, and for a lot of you, saying no is hard to do. Some of the things I'm going to discuss here this morning, close to noon, is things I picked up from other contractors. Right? Some of these things you're going to listen to me and go, yeah, we just can't do that. It's just not possible. If I say that, if I act this way, then I'm just not going to get any jobs. I'm going to be out of business. Now, a lot of this might not work for everybody, and you just need to keep that in mind and have an open mind about it. But some of this you might take into account and go, I never thought of looking at it that way. I never thought of doing it this way, whatever it may be. But if you're able to take 1, 2 things from this presentation today, then it's been successful. Right? But the hardest thing to say is no. Right? You know, we get out to the job site, especially commercial job sites, that, you know, that we get pushed. You know, almost to the point, and dare I say, almost to the point that the flooring contractor gets bullied on the job site by general contractors. Right? Because time frame. have to be done. Furniture's coming. You know, if you had the right amount of time to do the job, you can have it successful and have it done the right way. All right, a few quotes here I have, just like you to put in your pocket. You know, these kind of stuck with me. I've seen these a few different times, and you know, I get, you know, have that discussion every so often. You know, you get this job done so fast. How can I pay you what you asked me for? Because it doesn't take you that much time to do it. Well, the reality is, it's my experience. Right? That's what you're paying me for. Right? And then the second one is that, you know, there's a difference between a butcher and a surgeon. You know, they both use knives, right? But there's a different skill set. So the more experience you have, the better you are. Should you get paid more? In my opinion, absolutely. All right. But know that you have support. You're not on an island. You know, that's one of the things I usually have to bring up whenever I ask what's the hardest thing for contractors to say or do. In my opinion, the first thing is saying no to someone who's asking them to do something that just doesn't quite make sense. The second thing for them to do is ask for help. Right? But you have that out there. Now, the manufacturers, right? They don't want you to install the job incorrectly. Right? We want everything. We know, you know, when we get that discussion all the time that, well, back in your lab, in your factory, you guys have perfect conditions and it works, you know, all the time. But out in the field, we have variables. Well, we're trying to get you to have the same conditions. All right? No one wants to see a failure. Right? No one wants to see a failure. I mean, doing this with Ardex since 2004, trained many people. You know how many phone calls I've received that, hey, Tim, this installation, this training that you did for us, this installation went fantastic. I received one. They thanked me for the training that I did for them, and they got 3 other jobs from it. What are the more of the phone calls that I get? Hey, there's a problem. There's a problem on this job site. There's something going wrong. I need you to help me figure this out. You know, those are the phone calls we typically get. Right? I'd much rather have the other one that, hey, it's went fantastic. So when dealing with dealing with customers, it's your job to provide them with information. Right? Everything. If I was still installing, I would give the customer the flooring manufacturer's written instructions of the floor covering I'm installing, any underlayment, patch, adhesive, tape, whatever I'm using, in the finished maintenance program. Excuse me. It's their job to read it. Right? It's their job to read the information. You've provided them with the information. It's their job to read it. You know, think back when the last time you purchased a car. Did you read all the information that was presented in front of you? No. You just sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, and moved on. Right? Would you be surprised in that contract for that vehicle that you just purchased that it says for 1 week, every other month, you have to return the car to the car dealership? Right? So you walk out one day and go to get in your vehicle and it's gone. 911, call the police. Someone stole my car. They do some investigating and go, no one stole your vehicle. It's at the car dealership. You signed a contract that said you needed to return it for 1 week every other month. Right? So again, this is your backup. This is your support. So when something comes up on the job site, you have reference that, all right, because again, most of the times, especially for redoing a floor, we don't know what's underneath it. Right? So you remove the floor covering. This one had carpet in it. Now they want vinyl plank or something that's not breathable, and you remove it and you test for moisture, and the moisture levels are too high for the flooring that I'm going to install, and you come back and go, oh, I need to charge you more because I need to put a moisture system down now. Well, why do you have to do that? Well, for me to provide you with any type of warning from the flooring manufacturer, I have to do this. Well, where does this say it? I don't understand, right? So you can point out in the information that you've given to them of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, right? But and the information has everything that you need to have them, give them, job site conditions. Now, that's the other challenge, right? Having, especially commercially, everything enclosed, climatized, HVAC turned on. Typically when the HVAC turned on, typically when the end user's moving in, right? But it details the job site conditions, right? Details, moisture levels that are acceptable to install the flooring on top of it, how flat the substrate needs to be. All this is in the written instructions of the flooring manufacturer. Again, providing this with them, it's their responsibility to read it, right? It's their responsibility to read it. This is an excellent slide here that you can provide to your customers. If you want to print this, copy this, do whatever you need to do with this. You get to pick 2 of these, right? You get to pick 2 of them. You can't have all 3. All 3, that area just doesn't exist, right? You can have good and fast, you have good and cheap, right? But, you just have to keep this in mind of how you're discussing with the end user. All right, you provide them with the information. They don't quite understand. You're having this discussion with them. They still just don't quite get it. They just don't quite understand. Ask for help. The flooring manufacturer, the substrate manufacturer, substrate prep manufacturer, the adhesive manufacturer. Call them. Get them involved. All right? Have them visit the job site. Have them visit the site. So now it's coming from somebody else. And we talk about this and have this discussion that, you're saying the same thing that I'm saying, right? The flooring contractor is saying the same thing as the flooring manufacturer because they have installed this floor many times. But just coming from the manufacturer, it just sounds different for whatever reason, right? So ask them to visit. Ask us to visit the job site. Ask us to come out and make a recommendation on how it should proceed and how the job should be done. All right. Again, providing them with all the information because it's their job to read it all. All right. When somebody is on the job site, as a manufacturer comes out and tells you to do something that's not in their written instructions, it's not in black and white. Ask them for it in writing. Right? Understanding that the information's written for everybody. Well, because job site conditions, things are a little bit different. Things will be a little bit different. So ask them for it in writing. Right? Some of them, you might be surprised that they're telling you to do something that just doesn't quite make sense. And they go, yeah, we just really don't do that. But ask for them to put it in writing for you. Customers still aren't sure what they need or want. Because, the World Wide Web is a wonderful thing, right? You can find a lot of information on it. And so the customers go on site and look and find and decide that, yes, they want this, all right? Doesn't quite make sense, right? Make sure we understand what they're trying to do. Ask questions. Ask more questions. You've provided all the information, you've explained the information, you've contacted the manufacturers, everyone has talked to the customer, contacted the end user, right? They still don't quite understand. Ask more questions because they might not even know what they want. They really don't. They saw it on the World Wide Web and that's it. We had one contractor that he put down a floor and the end user just kept not liking it, right? just a gray cement floor. And come back, and after 3, 4, 5, 6 coats of trying to please the customer, asked us for help. Well, my first thing was, why didn't you ask us for help, at the beginning, and move forward? So we helped them. We assisted this contractor, and then the customer just still didn't like the floor. Still didn't like it. So he decided that he was just going to have a sit down with the customer and try to figure it out and ask more questions. And so a few days later, I called him up and asked him, I said, so what was the outcome of that floor? He goes, well, as you know, I sat down and had a real heart-to-heart with the customer and just decided, where we needed to go. And the end user said that they just wanted a gray floor. I said, okay, so what did you do? He says, I painted it because that's the look she wanted. Right? So he did all this work in trying to make this fancy, fabulous floor, and the end user just wanted paint. Right? So getting down and just having it. Okay, what are we trying to achieve here? Well, I just want one monolithic floor. All right, well, maybe it's paint, maybe it's this other type of floor covering. All right. The product information you're providing, all right, everything is going to be used. Everything is going to be used. All right. In the contract, I'm finding that more and more contractors are doing a few of these things. All right. They're putting in their contract, the installation can proceed when the job site conditions meet the flooring manufacturer's written instructions. And this includes moisture. Right? It means it's climatized, it's enclosed. Right? So many times we get pushed onto the job site that it has to be done. And the windows and doors aren't even installed. So how can that possibly be? All right? So they're putting in a contract, it's there. The other thing I'm finding that contractors are putting in there, especially for commercial installations, is a time frame. Why are they doing that? All right, because it's always the flooring contractor's job to catch the entire job site back on schedule. How's it the flooring contractor's responsibility that the HVAC guy was backed up because it rained for 3 weeks? But that's the reality of it. So they're putting in a time frame, and it's reasonable. You know how much flooring you can install in a day, or your crews can install in a day, right? That they're putting in their contract, and again, it's reasonable. And I'm just throwing out numbers. That for me to do this job correctly, it's going to take me 6 days to install this job, right? And then it gets down to crunch time, and the general contractor comes back and says, flooring or furniture's coming in 3 days. You need to be done. Well, I said in the contract I need 6 days to do this job and have it be successful and everything the way it's supposed to be. All right. He goes, but furniture's coming in 3 days, and I need you to really be done. So, in years past, the flooring contractor would try to get it done or get it done, and then what happened? And then they would spend another week, 2 weeks on their punch list fixing things because of corners that were cut. Right now, you put it in the contract that. You need a specific amount of time to have a successful installation, right? And you come back and they come in and say, well, I know it says here in your contract you need 6 days, but I really need you to be done in 3. Well, now we sharpen a pencil and, okay, this much more manpower, this much more overtime. I need to pull these people off of this job to do this one. And so it's going to cost this much more for me to get it done in 3 days instead of 6. And you look at that and hear that and go, if I put that in a contract, I won't get any jobs. Well, your reputation's worth something. No, your reputation's there. My brother's still an installer back east. He had a job to do in Florida, a movie theater, and the contractor who he's done many movie theaters for told him one time that, your prices are just a little too high on this, so I'm just going to use somebody local. Okay. He wasn't happy about it, but okay. I didn't have to go to Florida to install this job over a holiday weekend. A few days later, the general contractor called him and says, "Hey, the people that I hired are really behind, and I really need you to come down and catch us back up." And my brother said, "Sure. However, because I need to pull different people and get different people in, it's going to cost this much more." So a lot of it is just having that open discussion. A lot of us in the flooring contractors are just afraid to have that discussion. And it's just that. And you bring as much backup and support as you can, and you do that. I've seen job sites that outside the door of this room is a sheet and schedule. Okay, primer was put down. Underlayment cannot be installed before this time. They're putting this, out there because that's just how it needs to go. Right? The bottom line here, ask questions. Right? Ask questions. Almost to the point that you think you're asking too many. But once you start doing this, you'll have it dialed in. You'll have your script on how to have that discussion. Right? Provide information. Provide the information as much as you possibly can. Everything that's going to be installed on this job, everything that's going to be brought into this building, into this home, everything. Bring it up, provide them with all the information. Follow manufacturer's written instructions. I mentioned before that we do a lot of joint trainings, and I'm not calling out the flooring manufacturers. I'm referencing them as they're your backup and support. And doing these seminars and doing these presentations, I asked the flooring manufacturer who's typically sitting in the back of the room, and I asked them, "Mr. Flooring manufacturer, am I saying anything that is not correct?" And they say, "Tim, you are not, and we wish more people would read our information." All right? So the other part that's kind of difficult to do. Follow the manufacturer's written instructions. You read them, you understand them, and how many times have we just went, I'm going to just do it this way because it sounds better, feels better. We have a lot of smart people trying to figure out how these things need to be installed and how they perform and work. Let them have their job and let's follow their instructions. All right? Involves product manufacturers. Most of us have the sales professionals, have the technical department. Depending on the job, we want to visit. We want to make sure everything goes correctly. Again, I've received one phone call that this all went fantastic. I don't want to have that phone call that, hey, something's wrong now, let's come take a look. Know your capabilities. All right? Know your capabilities. Understand what's happening. I reference different jobs and different things that have happened. I've been doing this quite a long time. But I was asked to go to a hospital in Denver because the copper sheeting was coming off the floor. Okay, and they were blaming an underlayment for pulling the copper sheeting off the floor. Okay, so I visited the job site. I said, okay, so I need the information. I need what was used to install the copper sheeting. I need this information. And first off, they said that they used the drywall guy to put the copper sheeting down on the floor. And I just kind of scratched my head at that one and said, okay. And then they gave me the information for the adhesive that was used to install this copper sheeting. And in the name of the adhesive, it says wood flooring adhesive. And I brought to the general contractor, this says for wood flooring. They go, yeah, we know that, but that's what the contractor who put the copper sheeting said to it we needed to use. So you took the drywall guy's recommendation on how to install this copper sheeting on the floor to use wood flooring adhesive. That just doesn't make sense. So the drywall guy didn't know his capabilities, of how he should and when he should install this floor, or he shouldn't have it all. Right? So knowing your capabilities, know what you're capable of. Getting into prep. Some of you might have, grinders and do small areas. You get into a larger job, hire it out. Instead of trying to fight and do that. Another story here is that a friend of mine had a job, and he thought he needed to put some self-leveling down on his floor, and he had a peek in where the saw cut was, and I said, you just need to grind this area down, and then it'll all be fine. Well, a week later, I asked him how it was going. He said, I'm about a third of the way done. I'm scratching my head. And well, you're using the wrong grinder, wrong wheel on the grinder. I explained to him what he should have gotten. Well, we go back to the discussion of knowing your capabilities. His job, he's the golf pro at the local golf course, right? I golf, but I don't teach people how to play golf, right? So why is this guy trying to do flooring? Right? And then the last, say no. Your reputation is worth something. You might lose this job, right? You might lose this job, but a lot of times they'll call you back to fix whatever happened. And you might lose one or two. I get it. I understand. You're sitting there probably listening and going, yeah, it's easy for you because you're a manufacturer, and there's a lot of different jobs out there that you can do, right? But our sales team, they call the technical department, call us the sales prevention team, right? Because if you're not going to install it correctly, we don't want you installing it. There's been plenty of times that we've called product back off the job just because we don't want it installed incorrectly. If you're not going to do it right, oh, well, I'm going to use somebody else. Fine. I'm not going to inherit that headache. Just think back. Those who've been doing it for a while understand and get it, right? What's the job that's always been the biggest headache, right? The favor you've done for free, right? Somebody's brother-in-law, whoever's sister-in-law, somebody, they just need some flooring done, and you're going to exchange something. You're going to just do it, the goodness of your heart, and come back and go. And then there's problems after problems, and you're stuck to it. Where you just would have said, you know what, I'd rather you hire somebody else and pay them to do it. That way it's done. All right. So I get that some of this you're sitting there listening and thinking and going, I just can't do that. If I do that, then I'm going to be out of business. I'm going to be out of work. No, but again, ask for help. Understand what's going on, and just make sure everything's done the right way. Putting a time frame in. I mean, again, think of all the time and money that was spent on punch lists and getting things fixed because you had to cut corners. I know I've done that. Right? I know I've done that too. Right? So, if you take one or two things out of this, then this was successful. All of it might not fit for you or you and your market. It's a big country, and different markets are going to be different ways. I get that, right? So it's just that. Ask for help. Get people involved, okay? I'm going to open it up for questions now. We have a couple questions here. The first one I have is, what if I can't get the recommendation in writing? Okay? All right, so I'm assuming that, all right, you called a manufacturer out to a job site, read their recommendations, but you called them out because you have a situation that you need to get out of. and they tell you to do something that's not quite in their written instructions. You ask them for it and they go, yeah, we really don't do that. Well, then I would be a little weary of doing what they're telling me to do. You know, nowadays it's just all about that, protecting yourself. That's why providing all the information that you can is so important, right? It's all about protecting yourself. You know, unfortunately, here in the U.S., we have a lot of lawyers, and everyone doesn't want their flooring installed for free. They want you to pay for them to have their flooring installed, right? So if you're asking somebody for something in writing and they're not willing to do that for you, then I would be a little wary of doing what they're asking me to do. All right, the next one, the customer does not want to pay for anything extra. Then what? Again, your backup. The flooring manufacturer's written instructions, the underlayment manufacturer's written instructions on how things need to be done. You know, and I say this kind of easy and non-caring, but they don't want to pay for it. And I've had this discussion with our salespeople. Well, they don't want to do that. They don't want to pay for that. And my simple response is, I don't care. They have to. Or if they don't, then not to use our products. I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's just the bottom line. All right. This all sounds good, but what if I need to get the job? Right? What if you need to get the job? And I get it. You're not gonna get everyone. That's okay. Right? Your reputation is worth something. Your reputation is worth something. All right, so you have to keep that in mind, especially in different markets, right? That most of you as contractors are not advertising. You get jobs by word of mouth, right? Referrals, right? So your recommendation is worth something. You know, I receive phone calls and people calling me, and I'm asking them questions because there's an issue problem. And I go, so before we get going any further, what product are we talking about? And they'll mention somebody else's product. And I said, well, you know who I work for, right? They go, yeah, we understand that, but you're the one we were told to call to help us figure this out. You know, we just have to figure it out. All right, so another question we hear, why not recommend a small test installation with everyone involved? That's a great idea. That's a great idea, right? Having everyone there, that way everyone's dialed in on what needs to be done, going from whatever prep needs to be done, whatever adhesive needs to be done. No, it's a fantastic idea, you know, and most times, especially for the finished surfaces that I'm involved in now, mock-ups are extremely important. So absolutely, depending on, I know, a commercial job that needs to be done, you know, a home is going to be a little bit different, sure, but to come back and have a test area installed, I'm all for it. Absolutely. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Thank you so much, Tim, for presenting. So if the audience has any other additional questions, please be sure to enter them in the Q&A section on the left-hand side of your screen. We'll wait just another couple seconds and see if anybody enters any other questions. So we'll just take a pause here for a sec. Okay. Tim read all the questions that were submitted thus far. So again, thank you so much. If there are no questions, we've come to the conclusion of the presentation. So again, okay, nothing's coming in. So yeah, if there aren't any more questions, then on behalf of FCICA, thank you, Tim, for presenting today's webinar. helping contractors manage customer expectations. Sims, you may now navigate to the Submit Credit tab to receive credit. Please note that you must be signed into the education platform for this feature to work. If you have any issues, please let us know. Thank you again, Tim. This is the conclusion of today's webinar. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.